Hey, welcome back to another video. You know what we do here. We try to celebrate food and celebrate food holidays. And the other thing we try to do is elevate food. You don't want to be intimidated and thinking you can't create restaurant quality food at home. I'm a home cook just like you. And so we're going to go through different things in each video to show you how to take those everyday meals to that next level. And one of the things that make a difference in everyday cooking and everyone's cooking is an onion. We use onions in everything, don't we? You think about it, from using them in burgers, to top of burger, to onion rings, to your sauces, your gravies. Onion is used everywhere. But a lot of people get intimidated by the idea of having to cut onions because they think they're going to get tears and it's just a big process and they don't want to go through that. So they buy them diced and you spend all that extra money buying them pre-cut. But I'm telling you, we're going to walk through an onion, show you a few things about its anatomy, little things you may not know about an onion, and how you want to cut it so that you don't get tears. I can't really tell you the last time I had to worry about tears from cutting onions, and I cut a lot of onions. So let's go through, walk you through an onion, and maybe you pick up a few tips, a few tricks, share with your friends. And speaking of that, if you like this video, please click the subscribe button below, click like, click that alert button. You get notified every time we do videos every Friday. We want to get you a new video, get you some new information out there, and keep you up to date on what we're doing here at Salacious Spoon. So for now, let's get into the onion. Okay, so whenever you're talking about cutting or using sharp objects, safety is probably the most important thing. So before we even get to the onion, let's make sure we have a safe work environment. With your cutting board, you want to make sure it's secure. You don't want it wobbling all over the place when you're using it. And one of the best things you can do is just use a damp paper towel. Just take a damp paper towel, put it underneath your cutting board. And that's going to give you a nice stable surface and it won't move or wobble unless you have one of those cutting boards that's already that has the rubber feet on it. But now, as you can see, it doesn't wiggle. It stays sturdy with me. So make sure you do that. Have a safe, stable work surface. The second thing is a sharp knife. I can't stress the importance of having a sharp knife whenever you're going to be cutting. Don't be intimidated by it. It's much safer because A, you're not going to have to force your way through food whenever you are cutting, which means there's less chance of it slipping or anything like that. And B, it's going to give you cleaner cuts on your food so that you're not damaging it as much because you're pressing down on it. Have a sharp knife. If you're not sure how to do it yourself, I'm sure there's someone local or there's a lot of online mail-in services, but always keep a sharp knife. And speaking of your knife, you want to have a good grip with it as well. You never ever want to have your knife all flimsy and out of control. That's a recipe for disaster. Don't grip it down there. Think of it as if you are holding a pair of keys. If you're holding keys, you have that pinch grip and you're twisting the key. This is the bolster of your knife. You just do that same pinch grip there, wrap those fingers around, and now you have much more control over your knife and it's not going to go anywhere. It's going to be in your control, and that's exactly what you want every time. So please keep safety in mind. Now, that said, let's go on to our wonderful little onion here. Now, let's talk a little bit about the onion. You have your root and you have your tip. Think of it as a South Pole, North Pole. You want the onion to be stable and in control all the time. So the first thing we're going to do is get this base off the top here. So just cut it a little bit off the tip there. That's about the only time you really want your onion to be wobbling unless you're making onion rings. And just let that onion sit there and now have a solid base. And what we'll do is take this tip and cut right through the middle because we want to leave the root intact. You'd never want to cut that root off. You're going to have more juices than what would normally come out of an onion, and the root intact is going to leave it in control for you. You always want it in control when you're cutting. So now with that, you have a nice stable surface, and it's just a matter of deciding what kind of onion cuts you want. From here, unless you were going to do onion rings, which we'll talk about later, you can just go ahead and start doing your dicing or your slicing motions. If you look at your onion, you can take this top layer off. Some people like to take the top 2 layers off, and that's a personal preference depending on what you're feeling. I really, it depends on the mood I'm in. I'll take them both off with just that thinner layer. Some people say that that upper layer is kind of leathery. I don't really have that issue too often, so I don't care. It's just a matter of what feels good to me and the onion. If it feels fresh and it feels soft, then I'm going to go ahead and use it. So there's your onion, nice and stable. If you want dice, there's 2 ways to do this. We're going to do it the very the way that's going to give you even cuts. And the reason why you want even cuts is because you want everything to cook evenly. When you have a bunch of big cuts and smaller cuts, the smaller ones are going to usually burn faster and cook faster, and so you're going to get an uneven result. And we want the best quality product you can get here. So you can either start by making slices this way along the radius, and then you're going to make a couple of slices the long way, or you can make those slices first and then make them into dice, and then you get to your dicing. So look at your onion here. I like to just start this way and just make a quick slice, not all the way through the root, but to the root. And with your sharp knife, you just let it do the work for you, and right on through there. And then maybe a second cut here. I usually find, unless it's a really big onion, you don't need more than a couple of slices in that direction. Turn it this way, keep your fingers out of the way, and just let the knife do the work for you, right on through there. You can make these slices as wide or as thin as you want, depending on what you're going to do. Keep your fingers out of the way. And now you're ready to dice. At this point, don't worry about the little bits there. You can cut those up or deal with them later. You can just make your dice. You can go either small, see how thin it is. You have a nice, small, thin, minced sort of onion, or you can make them a little thicker. It just depends on what it is you want for your onion. And that's it. You've just diced your onion. There's minimal leakage here. You don't have a lot of liquid coming everywhere because you kept that root intact. And as you press through, you can just cut the rest of that onion there. And once you get to the end of the onion, you can just turn it over. If you don't have enough slices there, just add a few more slices along the edge there and finish your dice. Nice and easy. No problems, no muss, no fuss. If you have any little extra stress there, just cut them, not a big deal. And you can just cut your onion along this way as well, along that way. And you use all of the onion, nothing wasted. Now another cut that is very popular is of course slicing the onion. So you have the other half of the onion, we'll just show you here. And with that, we'll peel off that top layer again. And you have to decide what type of cut you want. So get rid of that top layer. Now you can cut this 2 ways with slicing. You can cut it along with the line of the onion. If you look at the onion, there's that grain. That's fibrous and it helps hold the onion together. Another reason why I like keeping that root intact. You can cut it that way, and when you do it this way, the onion keeps its form longer when you're cooking it. If you cut it this way, where now you're cutting against those grains because you're cutting it in the other direction, and when you're cooking, you're going to find that it falls apart. Your onion won't hold its form as long. So you just have to decide what your objective is in cooking. Sometimes you want it to fall apart if you don't want that texture in your final product. And you may want to just slice it that way if you want a softer result. But other times you may want to have these slices that hold their shape. I've been told, and it's been said, that it's less pungent when you bite into the onion because you haven't broken it down so much if you make your slices going parallel with the grain of the onion. I don't know if that's true, but I've heard it, so you want to give it a try. That's up to you, but it's worth considering if you want to give it a taste test. Try it out. Let me know what you think. You have nice slices there, ready to do whatever I want to do with my onion now. Now, of course, you can make these longer or shorter. I'm just showing you because I already have an onion cut. But those are 2 ways you can slice your onion. So keep that in mind. And if you want to do onion rings, we'll go ahead and grab a separate onion here. Now with onion rings, again, safety. I cannot stress safety enough. So if you're doing onion rings, you still want to try and keep as much of the onion intact as possible. So cut off the tip as usual. But this time, instead of peeling it, leave it intact. And then maybe take one side, fingers out of the way. Just maybe cut a little bit off there, one end, just to give you a solid base so it's not rolling anymore. And now you can just go ahead and decide how thick you want your onion slices. If you're doing a burger or something, maybe it's a little thinner. But if you're doing onion rings, maybe you want something a little thicker. You know, it's your choice depending on what your goal is that day when you're cooking. And at that point, once you've made your slice, you can just go ahead and pop that outer area off, however much you want to take away. And you have all these beautiful little rings ready for, you know, battering and turning into some delicious onion rings for you. So that's all there is to it when it comes to the onion. Keep that root intact. Try to keep the juices to a minimum. Keep your slices simple and in control. You're going to have less tearing up because of all of the onion juice that's going everywhere, and because you're making all these wild cuts and everything's loose and flying in the air. So there you have it, 3 different ways to cut an onion. You can dice them to whatever thickness you need. You can slice them, same thing. Or if you want to do onion rings or topping in a burger or something, you may want to just cut them, you know, across the whole onion. The most important thing is to be safe always. Use a sharp knife, have a stable work surface, and make sure your onion is stable by cutting off that tip before you start slicing, and cutting down the middle is necessary, so you always have a flat surface making contact and it doesn't get out of control for you. So keep that in mind. Give it a try. Don't be afraid of your knife. Don't be afraid to learn new things in the kitchen, and keep on having fun. We'll see you in the next video.